Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. Will camp director even be a career in 5 years?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
This episode of the CampHacker podcast is brought to you by UltraCamp. Wouldn't it be refreshing if your registration software gave you more time? With UltraCamp, you can track attendance, manage staff applications, streamline registration, and much more. Get back the time you need to focus on what's really important, camp. Find out more at summercampsoftware.com/camphacker.
Hello, Camp Mavericks. It's Travis. Welcome to the CampHacker podcast. I am Travis Allison. I'm a summer camp marketing and strategy consultant, and I help camps translate what they do so that more families want to send their kids to summer camp.
Hi, my name is Chris Hudson. I'm a social worker and the camp director at Camp Highlight, which is a sleepaway camp for kids who come from LGBTQ families.
My name is Gabrielle Rail, and I'm one of the camp directors of Camp Woro. Camp Woro is an all-girls camp in the Laurentian Mountains of Quebec, Canada, and we focus on creating a positive female community. We do that while speaking in French and in English.
And my name's Joe Richardson. I'm the executive director and guitar player at Pierce Williams, which is a United Church of Canada summer camp and retreat facility in southwestern Ontario, sort of about halfway between Detroit and Toronto.
Welcome to the CampHacker podcast, everybody. Before we begin our topic, I just want to remind you how important it is for the growth and the spreading of these discussions that we have here on the CampHacker podcast. We would love it if you went to ratethispodcast.com/camp, and then there will give you some options to leave some ratings and reviews. It's important for the growth of the show, so we appreciate that. So we are taking on a pretty big topic. In an uncertain year, I think I definitely know that there are lots of people who worked as summer camp directors this time last year who are not working as camp directors anymore. I think those who thought that this would be their career path have a lot of doubts about that. And I think what it means to be a camp director is going to change a lot over the next 5 years. But Joe, for you, what do you think? What do you think of this idea that there might not be camps or might not be this option as a year-round career? I think there will be camps, to be clear, but this option of the career that we've all enjoyed.
I think that really depends on how long this pandemic goes on for. We were on an OCA call, an Ontario Camps Association call today, and my brother also happens to be a camp director, for those who don't know, but we were talking after the call over chat that, we're not overtly optimistic that this summer is going to be a go. And if this summer is not a go and you missed last summer with campers, what are we reselling to parents, right? Like, how are we earning that trust back? And as a longtime camp professional, trust me, during the past year, I have thought about what else I can do that's not this. Mm-hmm. Right. And I've thought about the skills I have and what that would entail and where I would move, because I live at camp, right? Like, all of these are things that you think about as you fall asleep or wake up. And I think that's fine. I think that's normal. But I think that it's a harder question for the private camps than nonprofit, right? As a nonprofit camp, we can ask for donations, and that'll probably keep us going, even if I have to lay staff off, right, for another year, or 2 years, or 3 years, even without camper income.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. Where's your brain go, Gab?
For me, this is something I wanted to talk about, because I think that either you've lost your job already, or you're worried about your job in the future. And some people aren't, and that's wonderful. But I wanted to make sure that for those that are worried about it, something that we're talking about, and being it's not about being realistic, but it's having an understanding that we're not alone in this. And like Joe said, the problem solving aspect, the wheels are going and going. And what are the possibilities to keep your business afloat? And we are a private organization. And so we do have to think about what are some other possibilities, but within the constraints of the requirements from the government. And so for us last year, we were closed by the government, and we had so many people contact us and say, "Oh, I heard you were closed. Can I rent out some spots on your camp so we can, so we can, have sort of a summer vacation?" And I was like, "No, the government closed our industry. We can't rent out our site." But for me, it's more of it's understanding that it's a big uncertainty within the camp industry right now, and that a lot of us are uncertain of what the future is. And, I'm thinking about my job, sure, but more importantly, I'm thinking about the legacy of our organization and how do we sustain it through these really tough financial years.
Yeah, it's a lot. Chris?
I think my perspective is different because I'm not a full-time camp director, because our camp is not all summer. So a lot of the pressures I have about land management or staff management, I don't have, because everything is seasonal for us. That said, and not to minimize what anyone is feeling or what anyone said here, is that lots of industries are going through a contraction and trauma at this moment. And I think this question, there are specific and particular issues and matters for us as camp people. But I think the question for so many people is, will my job exist 5 years from now, especially if it is social or group oriented like ours? I am feeling really optimistic about this only because of the tales I've heard from camp directors about how they've been able to rally their communities, or how their communities have rallied for them, because our families and kids want us to be around. And they have really for Camp Highlight, they've really shown up for us, saying that they want to support us, saying that they're willing to pay more this year if it happens at all, et cetera, et cetera. This is not a particular worry that I have, but just because I believe in the community, and I think that camp is necessary. And this year is hard. Last year was hard, impossible. This year is going to be hard. Next year is going to be difficult. And then I think it's going to roar back in a way that none of us really anticipate. The only task there is to last that long, which is a financial puzzle that that people are going to have to figure out. So I don't have any answers to that, just a lot more questions and hand-wringing. But honestly, I feel really positive about it. I think if camps will get through the next 2 summers, and when they do, I don't anticipate it's going to move back to some golden age of camp, but I do think we're going to be in an environment where people are desperate to send their kids away from them. And then we'll reap the benefits of that.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be that. I must say that thinking 5 years out, I'm a little concerned for people who are in college and have said, I'm going to be a camp director someday, like I did. And that worries me. My biggest worry is the people who managed to get their camps through the next 2 years who just completely collapse. I have lived through that. That is why I am not camp directing anymore, because I lived through 2 years. Beth and I lived through 2 years of a major transition of our organization. We took it all on ourselves. It was an incredible amount of work. And I just got to the point that just one morning I was just crying on the bathroom floor. And I finally had to say to my wife, knowing that it would break her heart, that I can't be a camp director anymore. I can't. It's too much after 2 years. And it was the decision I had to make. It was not the right decision for Beth. I think we're both happy and have settled on that, but I know that this was just, I was at my end. And I remember that feeling. I remember the powerlessness of that. I remember just the exhaustion, that there was just so much raw emotion. And I worry about that being like a lot of people that we know or have supported to become camp directors, or people who are starting out, and friends. I worry that people will get their organizations through last year, this year, and whatever it takes for the year after that. And then at some point, people will just collapse. And that worries me.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, Travis. I think for me, that's helpful to hear. And just 2 days ago, Jackie, who's my mother, who I work with, and I'm living at camp right now. I've just had a rough past 2 weeks, just a rough patch. And I think part of it has to do with, I did a couple of conferences, I ran a couple of sessions, and there's that energy that I usually have, which is excited to share knowledge, receive knowledge, and implement that knowledge that summer. And at the back of my mind was that I don't know if we're going to have another summer. And I don't know personally in our organization what's going to happen if we don't. You know, there's some real realities that are looming. And our summer, last summer, we had a skeleton staff that came up to camp. And right now we are reaping the benefits of that. Pretty much almost, we had 27 staff members, and out of all of them applied except for 2, and one's is in her 3rd year of med school, and she just can't come this summer. The knowledge and their experience has gone up so much. But that summer for me was probably one of the hardest summers. It was absolutely, it wasn't probably, it was the hardest summer. And I was crawling out of it in September. And Jackie just said to me, if you don't think you can do this summer, if you don't, we won't, it's not worth breaking over it. And it opened up a little bit of space for both of us to talk about, if we do have the privilege of having campers and staff this summer, then what kind of summer do we want to make it happen? And how are we not looking at reduplicating it and trying to do what we've done in the past? How can we serve our campers and our staff members? But I am also worried about other camp directors and camp professionals that are trying to keep their businesses alive, like the restaurant industry and the theater industry and all of the other industries, and our industry. And there's some wonderful organizations out there that do great work that might not be around in 5 years.
I think, Gab, what you said is crystal right. Like it's clear that there's a challenge, and Travis said it too. If we start thinking about this idea of what's going to happen, what it's going to be like 5 years from now, you have to think about where somebody is in their career as well. Because if you started and you didn't know any different, and this is what happened to my summer camp director. So she grew up at camp. I hired her last November. She started full-time on March 1st of last year.
Oh my gosh.
And then COVID comes, and so it's different, right? But it was different for everybody. We had some staff. We had migrant farm workers on site quarantining, and we had staff dealing with that. And we had different things going on, and not a lot of clarity about how we were going to fund some things. Was it going to be through this mythical youth volunteer grant that never materialized, right? But if you think about it, if you're a young camp director only 5 years in, solo, running your own facility with a board, but you don't have other full-time staff like I have at camp, right? That's going to be hard 5 years in. Like, I couldn't imagine being a new camp director. So 15 years ago, had this happened, right? I have no idea. But then you also look at those people who are 20, 25 years into their camping career, and you're like, this is enough of this. I don't need to put up with this. I have other skills that I can use. And it might be time for a change. Almost like a midlife crisis, but spurred on by the pandemic.
Yeah. When you were speaking, Joe, I was thinking about people who are just now finishing up their studies, looking into being a camp director. I think they are going to be more affected. Wait, let me think about this before I say it. No, I'm going to say it, then think about it. I think that's my mode. I think
That's the way I love to live my life.
Yeah, I think more about the people entering the career than the people who've been in the career for a very long time. Because having been in camps for 25 years, I feel really confident in my ability to pivot. And what I mean is pivot within camping. Whereas like, if this isn't working out, I feel like I could make something else work out in camping. But also I have so much experience doing all these things that like, I feel like I could pivot out of it if I needed to. But like when you were speaking, I'm really feeling that for the first time. If like you're 26 and this is what you've wanted to do since you went to camp when you were 7 years old, and now you're unleashed in this environment, like, what I'm thinking is, are we going to see a dearth of talent 5-6 years from now?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, like how people aren't going to enter the industry last year, this year, or next year. And while we could figure it out because we're super resourceful, we've been doing this for a long time, I just think about that 4, 5, 6 years down the line when we're looking for staff or for administrative staff. Like that's actually hitting home to me just now in the middle of this call.
Well, and it's one of those things with the pandemic. I'm sure that I hope other people have thought of this and that it wasn't just me in the past year. But like, I was like, what business can I run that would be unaffected by a pandemic? Right? Like that's
no.
Right?
See, but that's the thing is that I feel like what I just said could be applied to the theater industry, you know, Broadway shows, right? There's going to be, who knows? There's going to be a dearth of people who can make costumes because a whole bunch of young people decide that they weren't going to go into that. You know, or certainly, you know, my friend's a makeup designer, people you can't get up in people's faces for the past year. So how are you able to practice? Which means a few years from now, there's going to be a dearth there. Like it's going to happen in so many industries. We'll all tackle it differently, but we're not alone in that, I think.
One of the reasons, and outside of the recording, the four of us have been talking about topics to talk about, et cetera. And one of the reasons why I was pushing for this topic this week is an interesting conversation I had with somebody who works in the camp industry who loves to say, I don't do technology. And I mean, because I have done my best to help make technology easy for camp people in lots of different places, those people tend to come to me. And I'm also one of those people who's just sending you people links to new apps or kind of by force of will. Hey, if you want to be part of this discussion group, then download this app because that's how I'm going to run this discussion group that I'm running. But I'm so worried about people like that who are like, yeah, I don't do tech. It's like, well, I don't know how you can do this job 5 years from now if you aren't comfortable with technology, if you're not able to embrace the constant learning that's required to be a professional in this industry.
But what is that about, that stance? I don't do tech. What's behind that?
I don't know. Most people who say that to me will say it's age related, that they're older than me, and I'm about to turn 50. But I don't know. I don't know what it's about. Maybe the other part, Chris, and I can see you all have some thoughts on this, but maybe the other part of it is that camp people who become camp directors because it gives them the ability to spend time with kids. And that's their whole reason for doing all of the other things that all the CampHacker podcast is about, is like, I will suffer through all of those things so that I get to do stuff with kids. Maybe it's those kind of people. I don't know.
I think that technology is something that is, it's at this moment in time, it's where do you stop? Right. So if you're between the age of 40 and 60, you grew up with computers, you're fairly comfortable with the internet, let's say. But like, are you going to start a TikTok account? Are you going to start playing with Roboblocks? Are you going to, right? Are you going to?
You're so cute. Roblox? Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. Roboblocks was my transformer.
Roboblocks. What?
I know.
That's a bastardization of a popular movie in the 80s. Roboblocks. Yeah, that's what you're thinking of.
It was about the camp director who became a robot. Yes.
Who said, "I don't do tech"? And
I know. Isn't it fun to derail Joe in the middle of his? Okay,
yes,
sorry, Joe.
It is, Chris.
It's this idea of like, are you always on the cutting edge, or are you going to focus on one thing? And if you focus on one thing, where's the best place? Because, right, as camp consultants, people, right, if they came to you and if you go to a digital person, they're like, just do it all. Start TikTok. Make sure you have a presence on Twitter, but don't just take your Instagram and send it automatically to Twitter, because Twitter doesn't like that. That's not part of the algorithm. And I'm like, okay. I hire people to do this stuff,
exactly. I was just going to say, this is why we work with young people. We're launching a new project at camp, and I sent an email to staff.
You heard it here first, everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm
exclusive to the CampHacker podcast.
We're launching this
Camp
new
highlight
project.
is
It's super exciting. I'm very excited about it, but I won't talk about it. Super exciting. But I sent an email to staff. I said, hey, I have this great idea for a fantastic project, and I would love a team to get together to do it, because I recognize, and I think we talked about this on a previous podcast, I recognize that I do not have the wherewithal. I'm not in touch with how young people are using the internet. So I was like, hey, young people, get together. They were super excited. They made a Slack channel. I'm reading the Slack channel, and they're like, let's do something like a TikTok dance interlude. I was like, I know what like 2 of those 4 words mean. It's fine. I'm sure it's going to be great. But that's the strength. Like, I understand. And I certainly have met people my age and older who are like, oh, I don't get involved with the Facebooks and the Instagrams. You don't have to, but like as an organization, you have to find some way to get in there. I mean, we're talking about whether camp directors will exist in 5 years. I think this is how camp directors have gotten this far, because like we work with kids. And so the people at the top are every year become more out of touch with the people they serve on a level. Do you know what I mean? I've certainly felt it in the past 15 years. So I think that's one of the ways that we ensure that our agencies continue to be flexible. It's just we have an influx of young people, which is why at the start of this, when we're talking about young people may not be coming to the industry, this is why it's like a global problem for us in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think smart camp pros are looking to their younger staff to teach them. And so that's another survival thing in a career like this, is you have to be willing to be taught. You have to be willing to say, I don't have all the answers. And I think you have to be vulnerable, of course, but you have to be willing to say, I keep hearing this thing. Can you teach me? How do you think this applies to camp? What do you think we should be doing? Because at a certain point, I mean, I look at my own father who's in his 70s. I'm a tech nerd because I grew up with one. And my dad now is like, computers, I don't, and I was like, just give me your phone, Dad, I'll fix it for you. But it's, I think, partly because he lost interest. He wasn't required to do it for his work anymore. So he just kind of, parked his tech interest and development at that point. But we have an advantage. I mean, that's a good thing for the longevity of this career, is that those who can inspire us to learn more and get us to try out new things.
I also think that in the long term, what we do will always be needed.
Sure.
And nothing. So I might have said this before in the podcast. I love scroll size. No, I started interviewing alumni during the pandemic, and we're up to 33 interviews at this moment in time, sort of trying to collect 60 stories was the way this started. And I'm amazed when I talk to they're still young people, right? People under 30 who were at camp. And I'm amazed at how much of it has zero reliance on technology. When you talk about favorite memory, best things. So that role needs to happen. And camp is one of the only places that does it extremely well. I think the technology side of things, that can be learned, that can be handed down to other people. And I think the relationship side of things, right? Teaching people how to be comfortable without their phone, how to have face-to-face conversations. I think those are also things that we teach because we do teach. But I think that when we say, will there be a camp director, right? Will the role be the same in 5 years? I don't think it was the same 5 years ago as it is today, right? We're dealing with different behavior issues. We're dealing with different parenting styles. We're dealing with all of those things. And, I had this thought, and I said it earlier in this podcast. Had this been my first experience, like in 2005, had the pandemic hit, would I have stayed in camping if I was brand new as an executive director and had to deal with this crap? I don't know.
I can't co-sign on that hard enough, Joe, in that this job is already different than it was 5 years ago. It will just be different 5 years from now. I think this is going to be a pothole for sure, but we've had potholes in the past. Again, not to minimize the trauma that people are going through now. It's just that I really want to, I am optimistic. I want to lean into the amount of flexibility that exists for people who want to do this in the first place.
The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by UltraCamp. Do you remember why you got into camp in the first place? Sometimes it's hard for us with all of the busy work involved in running camp to remember why we do this in the first place. UltraCamp helps you get back to what you love and why you're at camp. So what does that mean? It means not stressing about budget stuff. UltraCamp has a low minimum entry fee to get started using their product. They have clear pricing with no hidden costs. They have flexible payment terms, and they have no long-term contracts. So you can stop worrying about that one piece when you think about your information management within your camp program. Exclusive to CampHacker listeners, for a limited time, you get free setup if you tell them that you heard about this on the CampHacker podcast. If you think that this sounds too good to be true, you should definitely talk to the folks at UltraCamp because they'd love to show you a future where you finally have the time to get back to what's really important, running camp for kids. So please visit their website, summercampsoftware.com/camphacker, and set up a time to chat. They look forward to meeting you. Gab, what do you think people need to do to sustain this as a career personally? Like people listening, what are things they should be doing or thinking about to sustain this as a career for themselves?
Our previous camp director and owner, her and her husband was a teacher at a college and in physics, and he never took a salary from camp. And Madeline was an author, and there's this old school camp director piece where teachers started camps, and they had school throughout the year, and then they went up to camp during the summer, and all the kids and staff came for 2 months, and that's just the way it was. And that was their full year job. Teachers in the the other seasons, and then summer, they had summer camp. And I think there's going to be hybrid jobs that will be necessary to sustain your passion project, which might be either working for your camp or supporting an association or moving the camp industry forward in any which way that you see fit. I mean, we need to be fed in many different ways. Obviously, food is necessary and a roof over our head, but also passion projects are very important during difficult times. I know that my staff and staff members that have other jobs than camp and people that we had to lay off are wanting to continue to work on within our organization and help it move forward. And I constantly ask them, you don't need to keep doing this, we can handle this brunt of the work. And the response that I get is, no, this actually feels good. This helps me. I look forward to these conversations. So I think that for those that are looking in the future within camping, it's there might be hybrid type jobs, but as Chris was bringing up, that camps will find a way. It's just that I'm also mourning the camps that right now did everything that they could, and that just wasn't a possibility.
Well, and who would have thought we would have needed what we needed to get through, right? Like who would have thought that all businesses should have at least a year's worth of operating budget just sitting in a bank?
Cash,
Yeah.
Like and our board is of that belief now that we need to slowly build up that cash reserve.
Absolutely.
So that if this happens, then we have $200,000 or $300,000 or $500,000 sitting around to just get us through to cushion us through it.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to survive before we can build that reserve.
Yes.
Chris, any
interesting?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's going to be interesting thinking about that, having camp directors think about the finances in a really protective sort of way. As I think about like the camp is going to look different. I think that people are going to spend differently and save differently, right? Just for fear that something like this should happen again. Yep. Although granted, this hasn't happened in like 100 years. There have definitely been other things. I'm thinking of a lot of weather-related disasters that have happened to camps that they have to recover from. But that's something to think about, isn't it? Like, are we all going to be thinking about finances differently? Because so many camps have been brought to the brink by just one summer not in operation. And that's extremely sobering.
Well, and I think that we need to think this way. And for the rest of our working lives, if you're in your 40s and 50s, and right, you're nearing the end of your, right, the last 15 to 20 years of your working life. For the next 15 to 20 years, for sure, we're going to think about this pandemic. And although the last full-blown pandemic was 1918, you can't forget that polio came in between that, right? And that other pandemics came in between it. The challenge we have now is we're such a connected world. It's so easy for things to move from one place to another. And that's the fear when you do the reading, that we might see this more often than once every 100 years, which should scare the living daylights out of all of us, or become really comfortable with being a hermit.
Well, I think there has been a definite loss of innocence for many people who thought things would just constantly get better. It's just sort of, the economy will always grow. There will always be families who can afford camp, and there's a camp. We'll figure out how to get there. But I think there's been a loss of innocence in this job too, hopefully for better in the long term, because people have a better understanding of budgeting skills and long-term planning and all those things. And Dr. Fauci and others have said that we are entering the age of pandemics. And it's just, we'll plan better and think better. Those of us who are here in 5 years will be better planners and better examiners of potential problems.
Well, and
better
strategic thinkers.
And better strategic,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
You need to think through. I applied for student grants, and I wrote it up so that no matter what happens, I still have a job for them, right? It's not all about camp. It's about landscaping and manicuring and camp and potentially online and.
I'm trying to decide if did we give people hope, or did we just continue to probe the wounds? What I'm trying to think, if we ended this on an up note or a down note.
I think for me, Chris, it's what gives me, it's not necessarily hope, but it's helpful to hear, for me personally, that you're not alone in some of the struggles that you're going through. And I hope that what people are pulling from this is that that within our industry, we're very resourceful, and we've had to be over the years. I mean, your camp is a great example of that, where you saw a need and you have a location, and for a week, this is what you do. And you've built a very powerful community that is rallying around you, and you're developing programs. And it's part of a mindset as well. It's shifting our mindsets and mourning maybe what you used to be able to do, and what you need to do right now. And to Travis's point, we don't want our camp directors, our young camp directors, to burn out in these next couple of years, where they would be maybe 27, 28, 29, 30, in their mid 30s, and just be like, I got camp to past a survival point that was necessary, and now I just can't give anymore. And for those that are maybe lose hope that there's an opportunity to do hybrids, the thing is, it is tough. It is tough right now. It's tough, and as you said, Chris, in all the industries, this is something that we're all going through, and all industries are going to struggle. And if we can find where that alternative is, then there's hope for me.
Thank you all. I'm grateful and appreciate the chance to work these things through together with friends. Mm-hmm. So let us therefore move to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
Welcome to the Tool of the Week section, where we each bring something that we feel would make ourselves and others be better camp directors. I am going to Chris for the first one today.
Oh, we did not rehearse me going first, but okay, let's do this. So for the second episode in a row, I'm recommending a book. What can I say? I've been reading a lot because I'm trapped in my house. So I want to recommend the book Humans by Brandon Stanton. Brandon Stanton is a photographer who has made his name the past couple of years of walking down various streets of the world and taking pictures of people and asking them about their stories. And he runs an Instagram handle website called Humans of New York. It started in New York and now he's gone everywhere. This new book, Humans, summarizes and shows pictures of his travels and his interactions with humans. And why do I love this book? Why do I think it will make you a better camp director? This book, it sums up the reasons why I both chose social work and why I chose camping, is because what the book shows you is that people, they love and they grieve and they mourn and they celebrate and they laugh and they cry and they're devastated and they're triumphant. And it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where you're from. That is always true, is that there is such power in people and connection. And I love that. And I love being reminded of that. And every time I read part of the book, I remember that's why I'm doing all these things that I'm doing, is to reinforce this idea that we're not different. It doesn't matter if I'm from California or Iran or Johannesburg or Perth or Tokyo. It doesn't matter. We all have that in common. And so I would really recommend it. It's a fantastic coffee table book. For me, it's the read before I go to bed book. Check it out. It will make you a better person first and then a better camp director. So we'll put a link to it in the show notes. As always, I recommend that you do not buy it from Amazon. Give a small bookstore a chance.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. So Chris's book and the other tools of the week, as usual, will be found at camphacker.tv/podcast. I'm also picking an independent book source as my tool, so I'm going to go next. Mine is, as long-term listeners know, I don't read novels. I listen to them. Audiobooks are one of my great passions in the world. And there is now a new, quite small competitor to Audible, which is, of course, owned by Amazon. And it's called Libro. The website is Libro, Libro.fm. And the cool thing is that you can pick an independent bookstore who gets credit for selling that book to you. So they get a piece of this book. This is an international website. If you don't pick an independent bookstore, then the sales stuff as usual be split between the website and the author. But you can pick a local independent bookstore, and it'll help you pick by your location. It'll help you pick, as Chris said, if you want to support a local Black-owned bookstore, you can do that as well. All of those options are in there. And no, they don't have the same selection that Audible does. but they have 80% of the selection that Audible does. And my only beef with them is that they do not offer a 2-book-a-month credit program. I can only get 1 book a month, which is not enough for me. But it's great. Check out, you can get a subscription or you can buy 1 credit at a time at Libro.fm. Gab, what's yours?
Mine's an app and it's called Fabulous, but I keep calling it Fabuloso. I don't know why. It's just in my head. I'm like, oh, my Fabuloso app, and I love it. So it's one of those apps. It's a self-care app, but it basically helps you build routines. So I downloaded it for the free trial for the first 7 days, thinking I'm not going to use it, but I'm just going to learn from it. And I actually kept it. And why I'm putting the emphasis on I actually kept it is because it's a little over $60, y'all. So I was not anticipating in keeping this, but I have a difficult time sticking to routine, especially working from home. That makes it even harder. I have lists up. I write on my windows. I write on my fridge. This is what you're going to do next. Now, this is what you're going to do next. And I go and check off that little list. And then I think about an email that I wanted to send. So then I sit down at my desk and then I write the email. And then I'm like, oh, but I didn't feed the cats. And then I go and feed the cat. It is a nightmare. And I have so many different systems. This is actually the first app that has helped me stick to mini routines. And it's because it has calming music. They ask you to put on headphones and you do your routine for that first 15 minutes in the morning. And you can do those little tasks. You can choose what tasks you'd like to do. And one of the things that I like about it that I think is actually helpful for me is that I started choosing all these tasks. I was like, oh, yes, this, and oh, yes, that. And then it stopped me after I think task 5 and said, we need to build a routine first before you continue. So choose which tasks you actually want to focus on. So that was also helpful for me. So you can create a routine throughout your day, morning, afternoon, and evening, or just one of those times of days. And personally, it's really helped. What I would recommend is to try it before you commit to it, basically. But for me, it's helping out and it's working so far.
Sounds great, Kev. How about you, Joe?
My tool of the week is TechSoup. This is for every nonprofit out there in the world. The link in the show notes is to TechSoup Global, which will get you to your country, be it Canada, be it the US, be it anywhere. TechSoup offers technology programs at low or free cost to nonprofits through partnerships with, Microsoft and Dell and Lenovo and Adobe. And so it's something I've used. I have recommended before on this podcast in August of 2011. So it is almost a year, 10 years later. And so I still use it. I just got Microsoft Office 365 Business Premium for Pierce Williams, 10 accounts, $0. And each account gets a terabyte of storage, which is 10 terabytes, which is super awesome because as we move to the cloud, so TechSoup. And then the other one, I'm giving you a second one, is Happy Sock Twitter.
Oh,
so on my Twitter account, Travis said earlier before we started recording that all of a sudden I showed up on Twitter again, which is true. When the pandemic started, I was posting art every day on my Facebook, the art that's behind me on YouTube if you're watching. And then maybe 2 weeks ago, I got in my head that I would just take pictures of my socks because every morning when I put my socks on, it makes me happy. And you can go to @YoYoJoe, YoYoJoer, Richards, Joe Richards. So that's what the R is for on Twitter. And I'll do it as long as I can. I don't promise much, but I've been fairly consistent for a couple of weeks. And it's great. Happy Sock Twitter.
That's amazing, Joe. I hope you get you get good engagement and you keep it up. I must say that I've been posting pictures of me waking up the dog every morning on Instagram stories, and I have never done anything in social media ever that gets the same kind of response as the pictures of me getting our dog up in the morning and getting her outside. I get comments and posts every day. I hope it's the same for Sock Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope so. We'll see. I like shouting into the void and not hearing anything back. No echo, no nothing.
Lord.
So, Chris, this is a guy who posted 100 photos a day for an entire year once to very little fanfare, and I was totally fine with it.
You know
it's
what?
Awesome.
Like I said before we started, if that's making you happy, I'm thrilled. I love that. Not ironic at all. Have fun. What's the point? Have fun. Why wouldn't we? We're here, right?
Exactly.
Life is the point.
Yeah.
Chris, when you get your mic open, would you mind telling folks how they can follow up with you if they have any questions about stuff you talked about today?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram at PlanetChris1. You can email me at chris@camphighlight.com. You can also find Camp Highlight on Instagram at Camp Highlight.
Thanks for everything this week, Chris. Gab?
You can follow me and DM me at Gabrielle Rail on Instagram, and that's 2 L's for Rail. And you can also check out where I work at waro.com, OUAREAU. And if you prefer to email me, you can email me at info@waro.com, and my good friend Alexandre will get that message to me.
Perfect. Joe?
If you want to reach out to me, do it on Twitter at YoYoJoeR.
Excellent. Joe's renewed Twitter passion. The funny part is that Twitter happened just about the same time that we started our very first podcast together. It was only just a little bit before then. So if you have questions or comments for me, reach me at travis@gocamp.pro. And I want to thank the three of you for your insights and your openness and your sharing this week and every week. Thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.
Hey Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, we hope that whenever you share an idea that you learned from the Camp Hacker podcast, conference, summer camp professionals group, or wherever else, that you're quick to give credit where credit is due. That way, we can all encourage more Camp Pros to share the tips and tricks that will make camp better.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.